You sit down. You feel the urge, that unmistakable, undeniable signal your body just sent. And then, nothing happens. Or maybe something does happen. One small, hard piece slips out, and you're left standing at the sink 2 minutes later, still feeling like there's more in there. Still feeling like something is sitting right at the exit, refusing to budge no matter how long you wait it out. If that sounds like your life, I need you to hear this clearly. You are not broken, you're not alone, and you're not imagining it. That stool really is stuck. But here's the part almost nobody explains properly. It isn't stuck up in your colon somewhere far away. It's stuck, low, right at the very last stretch before the exit. And that single detail changes everything about how you should be treating it, because it means the box of laxatives sitting in your bathroom cabinet right now was probably never designed to fix your specific problem in the first place. Stick with me for the next several minutes, because I'm going to walk you through exactly why this happens. A simple remedy that can get things moving in as little as half an hour, a sitting position that works with your body instead of against it, and the handful of foods that can make this whole miserable cycle stop repeating itself. And near the end, I'll cover the warning signs that mean it's time to stop treating this at home and call a doctor instead. So let's get into it. Most people think constipation is just constipation. One problem, one cause, one fix. But that's not how the digestive system actually works. There are really two very different situations hiding under that single word, and they need two completely different solutions. The first type happens up high, inside the colon itself. Stool moves too slowly on its journey, sitting there day after day while your body quietly pulls more and more water out of it. By the time it's ready to move, it's dry, it's dense, and it takes real effort to push it along. This is the classic textbook version of constipation, and it's exactly what most over-the-counter laxatives are built to treat. The second type is different, and it's the one that leaves you sitting on the toilet feeling defeated. In this version, the stool has already completed its journey. It made it all the way down into the rectum, right at the final checkpoint before it should exit your body. But once it gets there, it simply stops. It won't come out, no matter how long you sit or how hard you push. Doctors call this outlet constipation, sometimes labeled dysenergic defecation, and it is far more common than most people realize, especially once you pass the age of 50. So why does the body seem to sabotage itself right at the finish line? Picture the rectum as a small holding chamber, the last few inches of the tunnel before the exit door. Wrapped around the base of that chamber is a muscle called the puborectalis, and it works a lot like a sling. Throughout your normal day, while you're sitting, standing, walking around, that sling is doing you a favor. It pulls the rectum into a gentle kink, almost like a bend in a garden hose, and that bend is a big part of what keeps you continent hour after hour without a single accident. But when it's actually time to have a bowel movement, that same sling has to relax and let the bend straighten out. If it doesn't fully relax, if it stays even partially tightened, the stool arrives at that kink and simply cannot get past it. Meanwhile, the clock keeps ticking. The longer stool sits there waiting, the more water your body continues to pull back out of it, which means the longer you wait, the harder and drier that mass becomes. Eventually, you're left with a firm, stubborn plug sitting right at the exit that has no intention of moving on its own. A few things tend to set this up in the first place. Not drinking enough water, not enough fiber in your day-to-day meals, constantly. Ignoring the urge because you're in a meeting, on a call, or simply in a place where going isn't convenient. Certain medications play a role too, particularly opioid painkillers, iron supplements, and some blood pressure medications. And for a lot of people, the pelvic floor muscles themselves have simply forgotten how to relax on command, almost like a habit that's been unlearned over years of tension and rushing. All of these tendencies, unfortunately, become more common the older we get. Here's the cruel twist. Your instinct in this moment is almost always to push harder. But pushing doesn't open that kink, it tightens it. Further, straining against a muscle that's already clenched shut is like trying to force a hose open by squeezing it even tighter. All you end up doing is setting yourself up for hemorrhoids, anal fissures, and over time, even rectal prolapse. So the very reflex that feels natural is often the thing making the whole situation worse. Now let's talk about what actually helps when you're stuck in the moment. Because when stool is already sitting in the rectum, you don't need something that spends 2 full days working its way through your entire digestive tract. You need something that acts fast, right where the problem already is, by pulling water directly into that stuck mass. That's exactly what magnesium hydroxide does, the active ingredient in milk of magnesia. 1 teaspoon, taken on an empty stomach with a full glass of water, is often all it takes. Here's the science behind why it works so well for this specific situation. Magnesium hydroxide is what's called an osmotic agent, which simply means it draws water out of the surrounding tissue and pulls it directly into the stool sitting in your rectum. That hard, dry plug starts softening from the inside out. Most people feel the urge return somewhere between 30 minutes and a few hours later, and this time things actually move. 1 teaspoon is roughly 5 milliliters, and that really is the sweet spot. This is not a situation where more is better. Taking extra doesn't speed things up. It just raises your risk of loose stools, cramping, and in some cases, electrolyte imbalances, especially if you find yourself reaching for it often. Treat this as an occasional rescue tool, not a daily habit. A few important cautions before you try it. If you have kidney disease, skip magnesium hydroxide entirely and talk to your doctor about alternatives, because your kidneys are responsible for clearing magnesium out of your system. And if they aren't functioning well, magnesium can build up to dangerous levels. If you have certain heart conditions or you're on medication that affects your electrolytes, exercise the same caution. And if you're taking prescription medications regularly, check with your physician first, since magnesium can interfere with how your body absorbs certain drugs, so the timing of when you take it matters more than you'd think. If you'd rather try something even more targeted and immediate, there's a second option worth knowing about, a glycerin suppository. Because it works directly at the site of the problem, it tends to act faster, often producing results within 15 to 30 minutes. It draws water into the stool right, where it's stuck and gently stimulates the rectal wall to contract and push things along. It's sold at essentially any pharmacy, no prescription required. And for stool that's sitting right at the exit, many people find it's the fastest, gentlest option available. One thing I'd steer you away from, especially as a regular go-to, are the harsher stimulant laxatives, the ones built around senna or bisacodyl. These work by irritating the bowel wall into contracting. And while that can move things along, it often comes with cramping and urgency. And with repeated use, your bowel can actually become dependent on that irritation just to function at all. For an occasional stuck episode, an osmotic remedy like magnesium hydroxide or a glycerin suppository is simply the smarter, gentler choice. Now, here's something almost nobody tells you, and it might be the single most useful piece of this entire video. You can take the perfect remedy, wait the recommended amount of time, sit down on the toilet, and still get absolutely nowhere. Not because the remedy failed, but because your body is sitting in the wrong position to let it work. Remember that puborectalis sling I mentioned earlier? The one that kinks the rectum shut? When you sit upright on a standard modern toilet, the kink stays partially in place, even when you're trying to go. You're essentially asking your body to push stool through a bend in the pipe. No wonder it feels like a battle. The fix takes about 60 seconds to set up, and it genuinely changes the entire experience. Grab a small step stool, somewhere around 6 to 9 inches tall, and place it right in front of your toilet. Rest your feet on it, so your knees end up higher than your hips. Then lean your torso forward slightly and rest your elbows on your knees. That single adjustment, knees above hips, body leaning forward, straightens out the angle inside your rectum. The kink unfolds, and the path actually opens up. There's a second piece to this that matters just as much, and it has to do with your belly. Let it relax outward. Don't suck it in. Don't clench it. Don't brace like you're bracing for impact. Let it soften and gently push forward instead. Then focus on your breathing. Take a slow inhale through your nose and let your belly expand as you do it, then a long, slow exhale through your mouth. As you breathe out, don't push, just let go. Release, rather than force. This runs completely opposite to what most of us were taught growing up, which was to hold your breath and bear down hard. That instinct actually tightens the pelvic floor and clamps the exit shut even further, which is the exact opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. Belly breathing, on the other hand, sends a signal to those same muscles to relax and open. Put it all together, feet elevated, body leaning forward, belly soft, slow controlled exhale, and you'll often feel stool that's been sitting there for hours simply slide out on its own. No straining, no force, just your body's mechanics finally working the way they are supposed to. Now let's shift from rescue mode to prevention, because using milk of magnesia every week isn't really a solution, it's a patch. The real goal is making sure stool never gets that hard and stuck in the first place, and there are 3 specific foods that do a remarkable job of that. Each one backed by real research, each one cheap, and each one easy to find at any grocery store. The first is kiwi fruit. 2 green kiwis with dinner is the amount studied and shown to help. Research has found that eating 2 kiwis a day can improve how often you go, soften stool consistency, and reduce straining within just a few weeks. Kiwi carries a unique mix of soluble fiber, water-binding compounds, and a natural enzyme called actinidin that gently supports digestion. Eat the skin if you can tolerate the texture, since that's where a lot of the fiber lives, and if not, just scoop the flesh out with a spoon. The second is ground flax seed. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day stirred into water, yogurt, oatmeal, or a smoothie. The word ground matters here more than people realize. Whole flax seeds largely pass straight through your system without doing much for you, while ground flaxseed is a completely different story. It provides soluble fiber that absorbs water in your gut and forms a soft, gel-like mass. And that mass keeps stool hydrated all the way down to the rectum, so it never has the chance to dry out into a hard plug. Start with just 1 tablespoon along with a full glass of water, then build up gradually from there. The third is prunes, 5 or 6 of them, or roughly half a cup of prune juice in the evening. Prunes have earned their reputation as nature's gentlest laxative for good reason. They contain sorbitol, a natural sugar that acts as a mild osmotic agent, pulling water into the stool much like magnesium does, just at a slower food-based pace. They also bring fiber and polyphenols to the table that support overall bowel health. Some research has even found prunes to outperform psyllium fiber supplements for mild constipation, which says a lot for something you can pick up at any supermarket. Kiwi with dinner, ground flaxseed in the morning, a few prunes in the evening. Simple, inexpensive, and quietly effective when you give it a few weeks to work. While we're on the topic of prevention, I want to mention 2 habits that go hand in hand with the fiber piece and often get overlooked. The first is movement. Regular physical activity, even something as basic as a 30-minute walk most days, helps stimulate the natural muscle contractions that move stool through your colon. People who sit for most of the day tend to have slower transit times, and that slower movement gives your body more opportunity to pull water out of the stool before it even reaches the rectum. The second is your gut bacteria. A diet rich in fermented foods like plain yogurt, kefir, or sauerkraut supports a healthy balance of gut flora, and a healthier gut microbiome has been linked in research to more regular, comfortable bowel movements. Neither of these replaces fiber and water, but they work alongside them, and together they make a meaningfully bigger difference than any single change on its own. There's also a piece of this puzzle that rarely gets talked about, and that's the connection between stress and your pelvic floor. When you're anxious, rushed, or under pressure, your body tends to hold tension everywhere, your shoulders, your jaw, and yes, your pelvic floor too. A clenched pelvic floor is a closed pelvic floor, which means even if you eat perfectly and hydrate perfectly, walking into the bathroom, stressed and tense, can still leave that puborectalis sling unwilling to let go. This is part of why so many people find that vacations, weekends, or quiet mornings at home tend to be easier than rushed. Weekday mornings before work. If you notice that pattern in your own life, it's not a coincidence, and it's worth building a few slow, unhurried minutes into your morning routine, specifically for this reason, rather than treating the bathroom as the last rushed stop before you're out the door. Timing your water intake matters more than most people assume as well. Chugging a large glass of water right as you sit down on the toilet won't do much for you in that moment, since it takes time for fluid to be absorbed and make its way into the stool that's already sitting in your rectum. What actually helps is consistent hydration throughout the entire day, spaced out cup by cup, so your body always has enough fluid on hand to keep stool soft as it forms and travels. A useful habit many people find helpful is drinking a full glass of water first thing in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else. It helps wake up the gut and can nudge that natural morning urge to show up right on schedule, which is when your colon is naturally most active anyway. Now here's where I need to correct 2 mistakes that I see constantly. Mistakes that actually end up making constipation worse instead of better, usually made by people with the best of intentions. Mistake number 1, adding more fiber without adding more water. This one trips up more people than anything else. Fiber works by absorbing water and forming a soft, bulky mass that moves easily through your bowel. But if you load up on fiber without giving your body enough fluid to go with it, the opposite happens. That fiber turns into something closer to dry cement instead of a soft mass. And it ends up getting stuck in the rectum in exactly the way we've been talking about this whole time. So if you start eating more flaxseed, more bran, more vegetables, you have to drink more water right alongside it. This isn't optional. It's the other half of the equation. A reasonable target for most adults sits around 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day, paired with 6 to 8 cups of water. And you should adjust upward if you're larger, more physically active, or living somewhere hot. Mistake number 2, ramping up too fast. People hear that fiber is good for them and triple their intake overnight. And the result is almost always bloating, gas, cramping, and sometimes constipation that's worse than. Instead, roughly 5 extra grams a week is plenty, and give your gut time to adjust to each increase before pushing further. And there's one more habit that might matter more than any food on this list: honoring the urge when it shows up. Your rectum has a built-in reflex. When it fills, it sends a signal straight to your brain telling you it's time. If you override that signal again and again because you're in a meeting, because you're driving, because the timing just isn't convenient, that reflex gradually starts to fade. Over time, the rectum becomes less sensitive to being full, stool sits there longer than it should, dries out, and gets stuck. Listening to your body the first time it speaks to you is, quite honestly, one of the simplest and most powerful things you can do for your digestive health, and it costs absolutely nothing. Before I wrap this up, I want to be straightforward with you about something important. Most stuck stool episodes are purely mechanical and they're relatively harmless. They respond well to everything we've covered today: the right remedy, the right position, the right foods. But your body also sends clear signals when something more serious might be going on, and those signals deserve real attention rather than being brushed aside. See a doctor promptly if you notice any of the following: blood in the stool, especially dark blood or blood that's mixed throughout, rather than just sitting on the surface. A tiny streak from straining once in a while is usually nothing to panic over, but anything beyond that deserves a proper evaluation. Unexplained weight loss showing up alongside changes in your bowel habits. A sudden change in stool shape, particularly stools that become pencil thin and stay that way over time. Constipation that starts suddenly with no clear cause, especially if you're over the age of 45. Severe abdominal pain, vomiting, or total inability to pass gas, which can signal a true bowel obstruction and needs same-day medical attention. And finally, repeated episodes of fecal impaction, where stool becomes so stuck that none of the remedies we've discussed today are able to move it. None of this is meant to scare you. It's actually the opposite. Knowing these warning signs is a form of empowerment, because it means you'll know exactly when to handle something at home and exactly when it's time to pick up the phone instead. So let's bring it all together. Stool that's stuck right at the exit is its own distinct problem, separate from ordinary constipation, and it deserves its own specific solution. Regular laxatives built for the colon often completely miss the mark here, which is exactly why so many people feel like nothing they try actually works. When you're stuck in the moment, the rescue is straightforward. 1 teaspoon of milk of magnesia on an empty stomach with a full glass of water, or glycerin suppository if you want something faster and more targeted. Then, just as important, sit the right way. Feet elevated on a small stool, knees above your hips, leaning forward, belly. Relaxed, breathing out slowly and letting go instead of pushing. And to keep this from becoming a recurring struggle, build in the habits that prevent it from starting in the first place. 2 kiwis with dinner, a tablespoon of ground flaxseed in the morning, a handful of prunes in the evening, plenty of water alongside any fiber you add, new fiber introduced slowly, not all at once, regular movement throughout your day. And the moment your body tells you it's time to go, you go, without negotiating with it. Your body isn't working against you here. It's simply asking to be heard and understood and worked with instead of fought. Listen to why. Tea the first time, and more often than not, it won't need to ask twice. If this helped you understand what's actually going on, do yourself a favor and share it with someone in your life who's been quietly dealing with this too. Because chances are, more people around you are struggling with this than you'd ever guess from the outside. And if you want more straightforward, no-nonsense breakdowns like this one on the things your body does that nobody properly explains, stick around, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.